So once again, welcome, and we'll get started here. So these, once again, here are some of the topics we'll be looking at today. Let me review that for a moment. Now you can follow along in Excel or just watch on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and close this little intro slide here. Like that. Pull up this file here. So when you get more advanced in Excel and you start using more complicated formulas in your documents, and they could be for anything, you might want to use something what they call named ranges or range names. Now basically it's a method of referring to one or more cells with a descriptive label. To make it simple, they mean that you can have a selection of data like what I have highlighted here. And this, like all of this could be your data. And you can give that range of data a name, a descriptive word or a descriptive label. So you can then use that label in a formula. So you don't have to put in like B5 through E8. You can just type in the name that you set aside for that. So we're going to take a look at that here shortly, and some of the ways that they use that. So on this spreadsheet here, this sample, there are northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest, different sales groups with, it could be like last year's sales per quarter going across there, and then the totals per quarter. Now down here we have a section for East Coast sales and West Coast sales. So that's combining this data and this data to get the totals. And we're going to do that without using the range of cells. We're going to create a named range, and so you can see how this works. Now, to do this, basically you first select your data that you want to use. You can highlight a couple of these separately or all of them, do them all separately. It depends on how you want to do it. Or you can combine, you know, like for this example, all of the East Coast together and then all of the West Coast together. I'm going to select just the Northeast sales group this time, and I'm going to click up here in the name box. And remember that from our level 1 class, the name box, it basically shows you where you're at. But right now I'm going to click on it, and this is how you name that range. You basically type what you want to refer this to. So I can call this Northeast Sales, and then press Enter on my keyboard, and now that's saved up here in the name box. If I click off somewhere else, including way off to the screen, I can always go up to the name box, the drop down for it, and select the Northeast Sales, and it instantly takes me and highlights that data I just created that range for. So I'm going to do the next one as well. Click up in here, select the data. Well, I'm Southeast Sales, and I'll press Enter. So now we have one for this section, one for that section, and they both show up in this name drop-down list. That's always available in the spreadsheet now. So now if I want to get the totals for all of this, I can then create a formula down here that uses those named ranges. So I can start a formula with equal. I can do sum, Then we do parentheses, and instead of doing the range, of such as B5 through E5 or B6 through E5, I'm going to try using the range here. If I start typing it, it shows up in a list here. So I can select it. And then since I want to combine all of the East Coast, I'll do comma, and I'll do Southeast sales. And I'll close that formula and press enter. And now I have the total of all the East Coast sales by using named ranges. So when I click on the formula for the B11 where the formula resides, you can then see it up here, equal sum, my first range name and my second name range. Now you can use this many different ways. That's just one example. Now going down the West Coast, maybe I don't need it broke down by north, by each section this way. I'm going to create a range for all of the West Coast. So I'm going to grab all that data, and then I'll go to my named range, my range box up here, and I'll call this, I'm just going to call it West Sales. Press enter, and so now I've created a third one. Just like the other one, it shows up here. I can always select it, and it always shows you the data and highlights it for you, selected. So now I'm going to go here to the West Coast sales, so it's a little quicker. And then I can grab West sales, and now I got the total for the West. So those are a couple of different ways you can use these range names in formulas. Broke it down small, or grab all the data and sum or average. Because right now they always have it. It always refers to that range that you created with it. So I can always go up to my formula bar up here. Maybe I also want the West Coast sales, but the average. Expand that a little. So I can copy this, put it down here, but then I'm going to change the formula to a different function, to average. And it didn't work. Oops, grabbed the wrong one. There we go. So there's the average out of those numbers in here. So that's a quick way to change your information, to pull up new information. I can also change this to min. If you remember, min will pull out the smallest number in your range of data. So in this case for the West, the smallest number was at 1385. Check that out. I'll put min. Copy and paste. I'm using keyboard shortcuts for copy and paste, so for me it's quicker. I'll change this to max. So I'm going to do the same thing, copy and paste, because it copies the formula down. But I'm going to change it again on here to max. Max will pull out the highest number out of that range. So if I select it and show you 3294, that is correct. That is the highest number in that section of data. So you can pull out a bunch of different information using these different functions just by copying them around. It's because it always has that what I already put in there. I'm pulling West sales on this one, I'm pulling West sales on that one, but I'm using different functions for them. Sum, min, max, and earlier I did average, and I can go ahead and put that there too. They can have it on the screen. Average, I'll copy this again, paste it right down. Come up here, change this to average, press enter. So I get multiple numbers for my boss, my supervisor, or for myself. Just changing a few little things, copying things, and changing the functions that they represent. And those are just some of the functions, and we'll look at some more here in a little bit. But that's what a named range can be used for. Referring to cells or a large group of cells and give it a label, a name, so you can easily pull that information out just by typing in that specific name, such as West Sales or East Sales and things of that nature. Saves a lot of time instead of typing in the range or clicking and dragging and grabbing the range when that range is going to be consistent, always in that same location. Now there's a lot of other functions that you can use in Exchange. Such as different categories. There are financial, there's date and time, there's math categories for these functions, statistical, lookup, reference, database type, there's text, logical, there's a lot. And these are some of the basic functions that are most common, you know, average, min, max, and of course sum is the one widely used all the time. But there are lots and lots of these functions inside Excel that you can use. Now, one might be kind of common. You need the current date and time. So it always shows on your worksheet. Say you open this worksheet every single day, you know, or in one of your worksheets every single day, or maybe you print it and you always want that date and time, you know, today's date on your screen, and when you print it, it'll show up as well. So that's another function that's in the system in Excel. And all these functions go into the other versions of Excel too. They were even in the previous versions of Excel, the ones we're going over anyways. So maybe you have to print this every single day or something and give it to your boss or something. So we could put up a date over here. Going to make it bold. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. And right next to it, I'm going to use a date function. So I'm going to start that with an equal sign. And I'm going to type now. And then I'm going to do the open and close parentheses because I don't need any special thing done here. As soon as I hit enter, it shows the current date and time. That's from my computer that I'm using. Get my mouse on top of it there. So up here it says just equal now. And every time you refresh this worksheet or reopen it, this will update for you. So every day it'll have the current date on there. And you can change the formatting of that if you wanted to say without the time with different formatting, but that is another function that comes in Excel. But like I said, there are a lot of different functions in the system. I'm going to close this one out. And I'm going to pull up another worksheet here. and this is where you can see, this is one example where you can always have the date in that same place. So it's today's date, and it can update every single time you pull up this worksheet. So it's always there. So if you print, something every single day, you can have that in the system. So it pulls up for you all the time. Try something over here. So some other more complex functions are counting. And if you want to see the big list, especially when you're first learning these different functions, this button right over here, if I hold my mouse on top, I'll get the highlighter up for you. This one right here looks like an S and a small X. That is for the insert function button. That'll bring up a menu, and it gives a description, and you can select from these categories. Usually it pulls up the most recently used functions that I've used or you use on your computer. But there's a drop down there where you can go to all those categories that I mentioned earlier to look through all that they have, and there is quite a few in here. I don't know exactly how many, but there is a lot. So if I go to like financial, there you can see there's quite a few in here. So this one can be used for if you have a mortgage or payment. If you know certain numbers, you can get your payment amount that you have or your interest rate and things like that. Just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So here's one for payment. So if I select that, it says calculate the payments for a loan based on constant payment and a constant interest rate. So if you know your payment amount and your interest rate, certain things like that, you can use some of these functions in Excel. Say you're looking to buy a car or house or anything really, or just managing your credit card. If you know certain numbers from that, such as your rate and so forth, you can figure out what your payments would be if you're trying to look for a car or something, to plan ahead. And you could do that in Excel. And of course nowadays they have websites to do that for you too and help you calculate, but those are all built into Excel as well to figure out what your payment would be. So make sure you're under budget when you actually do go look for a car or anything of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and close that, but there's tons of categories and tons of functions built in. And here's the average one, and that falls under system. I'm going to cancel out of that there. Now, another thing in Excel that's very useful, especially when you have a large spreadsheet, lots of rows and rows being used, is under the Data tab, such as sorting and filtering, and I use this quite often, the filtering and sorting. So if you notice, this spreadsheet has some header files here, such as first, last, hire date, department, office location, and so on, and some are blank. But if I go to department, or any one of these really, I can click on this filter button up here. This filter button lets you filter on your column headers. So once I did that, you notice these little triangles appeared. little drop-down menus. So when you see those, you can click them and sort on the data that you have in your spreadsheet. So like at this one here, it has department. Maybe I just want to see only the employees that are from a certain department. So I can click that. I can clear the entire list by clicking the select all, which removes the check mark. And then I can go and say, maybe I want to see all the people from human resources. I can click on that there, have it selected. I'll then hit OK. And then my list just got way smaller. Now I only see the 3 people who are in that department. And if you notice closely there, when I just applied that filter, this changes to the icon of the filter up there as well. So you know that there is a filter applied. If I click on it again, yep, definitely a filter applied. Now, if you're done with this, you can simply turn off, click that filter button up here again, and it shuts it all off. Or, if I only had one selected, you would simply just say select all to turn all of them back on, and then all your data shows up. For me, I typically, when I'm done filtering on certain data, I just click the button up top to turn the filter off. And it explains to you when you hold your mouse on top what this filter one does. Enable filtering on a selected cell. And if I click it off, it's gone. Sorting, sort it by one item. If you just click the sort descending, or if you click the big button here, it'll bring up a dialog box and give you more options on your sorting. So if I click that, you can see in the background it highlighted a whole bunch of data. And then I have this menu that comes up, and it says sort by. And because I had clicked in my header here, in my data area, and then clicked on the sort button, it knows my column headers, my column names. Now, if you did not have those, it would show like A, B, C, or D for the columns that you can select from. So maybe you just simply want to sort by the last name, select that, hit OK, and now it's sorted by the last name here. If I don't like that, I can simply hit undo very quickly, and it puts it back, and I can go back again. Maybe you want to sort it by last name, but also by the department. So it's going to sort by last name, and then it's going to also sort it by the department. So then it does that for me. But that's up here under the sort button. These are some way you can manipulate your data to help you see things more easily by filtering on your information. It works really good, especially if you have a large amounts of data in your spreadsheet there. So that stuff is under that data tab. It's very useful, very common sorting and filtering. There's also several other very cool tools that are very beneficial when you're dealing with spreadsheets and outside information or combining information or separating information. It's these here up top, right next to the sorting and filter. Text the columns, remove duplicates. There's also data validation. And I used to use this one a lot when I used to design spreadsheets, like spreadsheet templates. It helped prevent invalid data from being entered into a cell. So you can set a certain cell or a certain area where they can only type in certain things in that cell. You can also, as it shows you in the pop-up window, make them only select from a list, like a drop-down list, things that you specify. Remove duplicates will delete duplicate rows of information, and you tell it what to check. Text the column. You can separate the contents of one cell into separate columns. So example, I've used this several times in the past. So sometimes you have data, you have spreadsheet, you have information, but the information is not broke down to separate columns, like separate smaller pieces of information. So maybe instead of, like on this example, they have, here they already have it broke down, first and last name. But what if your data is like this, but you really need it all separated out into, you know, first name, last name. Because when it is, you have more options and more ability to deal with that data. When you're ever dealing with any kind of databases or large amounts of information, you always want to try to break down your information as small as possible, such as first name and last name. So you can sort or filter or do things with just their first name or just their last name. It is much more difficult if you're dealing with just their name or just their address. So for addresses, you would want address line 1. You want to break it out to city, state, zip code, and so on. Break it down as small as possible, then you can report on it much better. So if I go select Mr. John Smith, and I'm going to try this, text column, tells you, here's your preview. This little wizard comes up, and it says, the text wizard has determined that your data is delimited. If it's correct, choose next, or choose the data type that best describes your data. So you can characters, commas, or tabs. So if there's commas in there, you can easily separate them out. If not, I can try to use fixed width. Fields are aligned in columns and spaces between each field. So I hit next, and on this next tab here, this next screen, step 2 of 3, I only have one item here selected. Let me cancel, and I'll select both columns. So now I have both John and Mary. So I'm going to say fixed width. I'll hit next, and it shows you the data preview of what's going to happen. It says you can create a break line or delete a break line. It tells you what to do here. But you can see it already knows there's a separation, there's a space in between their first name and the last name, but it's in that one column. So it already has that there. If I hit next, it tells me more where, what kind of data this might be, and where I'm going to put it. Right now it's just L4, and I don't want it there. I want to put that somewhere else. I'm going to just throw it over here for now. And it shows me it's going to separate these as general formatting. I don't need special date formatting or anything like that. If there's other columns in here, you can tell it to skip those. I'm going to leave it like it is. I'll hit finish, and as you can see, boom, I have John Smith and Mary Smith. They're all separated for me, and I didn't have to do much work at all. Excel did the work for me. I'm going to hit undo and take that back. So that's if you select the data first, and then you text the columns. And you can do it this way too. This one I just left that delimited. I hit next, and there's spaces, I know, so I'm going to just tell it to split it by the space. Hit next. And then I'm going to have this go to like over here. And hit finished. So this can help you save a lot of time to split up your data, so then I can use information with their first name and with their last name to manipulate it much more finer detail than just their whole name that way. Because sometimes you do get data just like that, especially in the past. But always try to break it up as small as possible so you can use better reporting on all of those fields. So that's with the text to columns. There's also, remove duplicates, data validation. These are most, more advanced options, but they are there. Now, if you want to change your headers and the way this text looks for you, these, like first, last, that's all the way back under your main home page for your formatting. Change your font, change your font styles, the size of it, or you can use the big button and little button like I showed you in the previous class. You can also use these styles like you're in PowerPoint. Not as much as PowerPoint, of course, because this is a different program. This is Excel. But you do have some options for changing the look of your information. And there's also a More button here. So I can quickly pick one of these if I wanted to, or use the heading one that they give me. And when I'm done, I can just click on it if I want to try it out. If I don't like it, I can click this button up here to quickly change them as well. But though you can change your whole spreadsheet to different styles quickly and easily to add more color to your spreadsheet there, highlighted. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. I'm not going to save it. Close this one. So I got these samples here of some sales, some books, CDs, and tapes. Down here there's some more. There's some budgets, different departments. Now, one thing you might want to do when you're doing Excel spreadsheets or presenting data to other people or just for yourself, you might want to display that information by using a graphical representation, such as using a chart. It's a visual representation of the data that you have from your worksheet or table. And there's all kinds of different charts that are in Excel. There's pie charts. There are bar charts, area charts, scatter charts. It just depends on how you want to represent your information. So in here, we have sales, January to December, books and tapes and so forth. I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to my Insert tab. And remember, the Insert tab lets you put things in your spreadsheet. And over here is the chart section. You can quickly pick any one of these, or you can bring up the menu with this little button in the corner, and it brings up a much more bigger list of charts that you can use, columns, lines, pies. There's quite a few, and the one you use depends on a lot on the data that you have. I'm just going to select, maybe I'll just do a pie chart, select it, and there's the different slices of pie. If I don't like it, I can just do undo and try it again. Now the way that works is because I already have information in this spreadsheet, I'm just selecting it all, including the headers at the top. So you want to include everything. All of it. So all of this I'm selecting, all of this, all of this. So then this is what shows up when you do the chart wizard. So if I go back to insert again, and let's try a column. Now I'll just do a simple 2D column. And this is a different way to view the data. And a column chart. So this one grabs, the titles are there, the vertical axis for the amount of money, the amount of sales, and the books, CDs, and tapes. So you have your different items for those sales. And I could drag this and put it in different locations by grabbing the outside section when you get the 4 arrows on the box. I can put that over there. And you can quickly change the look of that as well. Up here at the top, you see these chart styles. I can click on them to change some of the colors quickly and easily. Now, if I don't like this, once I created it, instead of undoing it and starting over, you can go over here to chart layout and try some of these that have more information or different ways to represent the data. So this has all the numbers at the top switched around, so it shows books and CDs at the bottom over there. Just different ways to represent the data. Just don't make it messy. If you're trying to, like this is very busy. There's too many numbers here. I can't read them all very clearly. So this one you probably would not want to use. This one here is more streamlined. It's clear, it's precise. It shows you the graphics, the amount of money, and so on. And there's more on the list here. So you can, pick and choose and find one that you like. And that's clean and looks good. You can also, if it is a little squishy, you can also drag and drop and make this much bigger, which you more than likely probably want to do. You can also put this on a different spreadsheet down here. So you can have a sheet 2 for just your chart. If I delete that whole thing, go over here to sheet 2. I'm going to go insert and column. There's no information. I didn't highlight any data in my spreadsheet, though. There's nothing going to show up in my chart. So if you notice over here, it says select data under this data tab. Once you create a chart, whether you have data or not, this is available. So if I click that, it lets me pull information. Chart data range. Right now it says it's on sheet 2. Well, I have no data on sheet 2. So if I click this one, I can go over to sheet 1, and then I can select that data, same data from the sheet 1. I can click this button to save it, or I can press enter. So then it shows you what I have here. And I'm going to say OK. So now I have my chart created, but on a totally different worksheet. So I don't have to worry about anything else on the screen. I can just make this nice and big. And you can still change the colors and everything up here just like before. It's just that I said I want it on a different sheet. So then I can rename my sheet down here by double-clicking, or you can also right-click on it and say rename. I typically double-click. For me, it's faster. I'll just call that chart. So now I have a sheet called chart with the actual chart on it. Now when you click off your chart tools and things go away. So to get those back, I double-click somewhere in the chart, and these items come available again to fix my colors or to change the layout to something that I like. So you can put it on a totally different sheet or on the same sheet. Just depends on what you want to do. And if you really wanted to, I can right-click on my sheet down here, and I could pick a different color for this. So now that sheet tab down here is in the red. Now let's accept. There. So and you could put different colors for any sheet you have down there, whether you have 1 or 2 sheets, or 5 or 6 sheets, or a dozen sheets representing, every month of the year, or you can have it week 1, week 2, week 3, 4, or you can have quarterly sheets. It really depends on the data you have and that you're working with. So we'll go back to charts, and I'll do that again in case it went too fast. So the easiest way for me, what I do is I always put in my data first, because then it's so easy to select your data and then tell it to insert a chart. That's how I do it. So just like this, select your information, including your headers, to describe what these represent, and then insert, and then you can use the drop down, or just click the default ones they have there. And you could expand it. But that's the way I do it. I put my information in first, and then select it, and then just say insert. And I could use these different layouts here to show the actual percentages of sales or whatever your data may be. And if I want to change it, I can. Change the colors. It's all available for you to use. So that's how we can do charts and things of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and close this one here. And pull up this other spreadsheet. Now this one has a ton of data in it, a lot. I mean, I'm all the way down to 1,000 now. Tons of information we got in here. So a lot of times that can be difficult to manipulate that information or to find what you're looking for. So that's why we need tools and options, and Excel gives you those. Now this is a good example for what I showed you earlier under the Data tab with filtering. So once again, this has over 1,000 records. I can't deal with all that. I don't want to see all that. And in this case, maybe I want to just see items for a specific country. So then I would uncheck everything and say France, hit OK, and now I only see the items that have France in this column. And if you notice on the left-hand side for all the rows, it hides all the other rows that don't have France in it. So you can see the numbers jumping and skipping around all the way up past 2,000. Now if I go back there, maybe now I want to see something else, so I can uncheck the one for France, and I can say Brazil and say OK. Same thing happens. I see only Brazil now, and the rows have skipped around to show me just that. Now you can filter on multiple columns that you have. So maybe I want Brazil and the salesperson of Andrew. Boom. I can see everything on the screen now. Nothing is hidden, all at once. So Brazil and Andrew. That's all I needed to see. So then I can, manipulate this data if I needed to, copy and paste it, print it, but now I can see just what I'm looking for. Turn that all off again, you can hit the filter button or leave it like it is. And since this is probably sales information, you can filter on days or certain products. that they sell or certain price ranges. So that's just a better way with the example if there's a lot of data that you have in a spreadsheet. Now, when you're dealing with large amounts of data, like this and other items, you might have difficulty because you might have 20,000 rows in here. So there is another way to manipulate data, to view your data, to analyze your data, and that's what they call pivot tables. And it's basically in Excel, it's kind of a report, but it's an interactive worksheet that you can help you to summarize and analyze those large amounts of data. So it's easier and it's on one little screen, kind of like I did with the filtering, but much more detailed. So we have this one file open, and this is invoices. You can use this one. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this one. Yeah, this is the right one. Shipping in here. We're going to go ahead and create what they call that pivot table. And a lot of times, mainly, it's only with large amounts of information. So people in accounting use this, or analysts use it to help them with that information to pull what they need to see. So you go over, I'm going to go over there to data. On that data tab there. And it has some of the things that we used already today. Now for the pivot table though, we want to go to the insert tab because we're actually inserting something. It's going to throw in a new sheet or put it somewhere else for us, but using the data we have here. So if you go to insert, over here you have a pivot table. And I'll leave my mouse there for a few seconds. It says summarize the data using the pivot table. Makes it easy to arrange and summarize complicated data, drill down on those details. You know, it compresses it, you can expand it to see just what you need to see. So since this was a big amount of information, a large amount, you know, we're talking over 2,000 records in here, it might be a good idea for us to try that out. So I'm going to click, you just got to make sure you're selected somewhere inside your data for this to work. And then I clicked on that pivot table button. And because I clicked inside my data already, it knows what I'm trying to do, or thinks it knows what I'm trying to do, and it grabs all the columns and all the data for me already, as you can see here in the table range to use. And then the bottom section that says choose where you want the report to be placed, a brand new worksheet or an existing worksheet. Well, I don't want to put it into existing worksheet because I only have one called invoices, so I wanted to create a new worksheet for me. So I'm just going to leave it like it is and say OK. And so now I have a new sheet down here, and this little screen here says to build a report, choose your fields from the table field list. Over here, so we have that pivot table field list. So I can pick and choose the fields that I want to report on. So I'm going to select some of these. I'm going to go ahead and grab, like, of course, we need the salesperson. And as soon as I click that, you see this has changed already for me. So it has my salesperson. All there listed right there. If I click it again, it goes away like I didn't do anything. So it works quickly and efficiently. So I'm going to select salesperson, maybe the ship date, and product. We got to know what we're dealing with. Maybe the extended price or quantity. And as I click those, you see how quickly that screen on the left changes. And you also notice if I look by Andrew, there's a little minus sign, a negative sign, you can use those to collapse the screens, and it will show you the totals here, the sums. And if I scroll down, we've still got a lot of information, but it's much more organized quickly and easily. If I just want to see Andrews, I can expand that and sort through these dates of when the sales or ship date was happened. Now, if I don't like it, maybe it's too confusing or it's too much information, I can say, I don't want the dates anymore. So I uncheck the date over here, and now it just shows his name, the quantities, the amounts that he has sold. Now, what if you want to see this information but a different way? That's where this comes into play down here. Your report filter, your row labels, your values. If I grab this salesperson field and put it up here, watch what happens. Puts it up here, says all. So this is all salespeople. It's a much shorter list for everybody, showing everybody's data. If I do the drop down, I can pick and choose to filter on just one salesperson, so I can quickly get their totals for just one person. It added filtering for me there, but I'll switch it back to all and bring it all back. So if I put product up there, now look at it. So it's showing me all the salesperson, all the products, and I'm getting the totals for the quantity and the totals for the sales. If I take product out, it switches it back to the way it was. Now look at this one. I move salesperson over to the column. So now it's got their names, the salesperson, in each column with their totals going this way. So this is what they use. You can quickly pivot the data around to see what you want to see there quickly, easily, without trying to sort through a big long list of rows and columns. That's where this pivot tables come into play. Quickly, easily analyze your data, more efficiency. When you have, of course, large amounts of data, if you just have 10 or 15 or 20 rows, you probably don't need to use a pivot table in your spreadsheet. But if you have a ton of information like this one does, pivot tables can be a great benefit because I can keep turning things on and off over here, and it'll pivot the data there and show me in a different way. I could just, maybe I want to filter on products, so I put products under the report filter, and it shows me all the quantities. Right now I'm doing all products, so if I want to filter that by just certain items, you can. We're using the filtering. So it shows me everything and the salespeople. So if you move information around in these different areas, can't go there. Like I just moved the quantity up. So it'll pivot the data and show you it in a different way. Very big benefit to accounting people or people who analyze information with the pivot table. Once again, starting from scratch, your large amount of data, you want to use pivot table, try it out. Go click somewhere inside your information, go to insert, and then pivot table. Once again, it should automatically select your information as long as you do not have big spaces in here. If you have a big list of data like this one is, I'll just go to like here. I believe if I delete this, maybe insert a blank one. I click up here and try pivot table. You notice it's only grabbing through row number 15 because it thinks that's the end of the data. There's nothing here, so it's Excel, I'm done. It thinks it's done. So when you're working with things like this, with data, you want to get rid of those blank rows if you had any, or your information will be incomplete when dealing with pivot tables and things of that nature. So I'm going to start over, click here, click pivot table again, and then it grabs the correct amount of 2155 for the range. And once again, I'll just say new sheet, and I can start over. I can have multiple pivot tables with different layouts to access them quickly so I don't have to change them once you set them up the way you like. You can leave them there as different sheets down here. This can be, you can set it up one way and give the sheet name, the description, reporting by product, and this one can be just based on the salesperson and the quantities, and you can manipulate the data that way. Or you can, of course, just leave it here and change it around all the time. Or, like I did, I have 2 pivot tables now in that same worksheet. So very useful for large amounts of information. I just created a new worksheet there. Now besides some of that more advanced feature like the pivot table, there's also tables. Now tables can be used to manage and analyze data. So if I click table, where do I want to put it? I can say OK. And then it's very similar if you've ever used tables in Word or anything. If I select this whole area too, I can say insert table. This is better. So it creates a table here for me. I didn't have any column names, so it threw in column 1, column 2, and you can change that if you wanted to. But this is another way. If you have a list of information, you can insert that table quickly and easily. So if I can use some of this data. If I select some of this here, I can go to insert table, say OK, and it quickly formats it for me and everything and turns on filtering on whatever I had highlighted. Or like I did on the other sheet, you could start from scratch and go manually start putting stuff in already. So typically, like I said earlier, I typically put all my data in first. Except for, of course, I always put the column headers. But I put that data in first, and then if I want to colorize it or make a chart, I do all that after I get the information in there. Now back to the Insert tab there. Like I said, there's a lot of other things you can do in here. And some of those are smart art. In here we have lots of different categories and things. If you have a need for org charts, you can do basic organizational charts by using some of these as well. You just double-click on the style you want to use, and then you type in your information. This could be about the locations of your company, or it could be a organizational chart of who's the boss and the people underneath it. So that's just one example. And like the chart and things like that, it has buttons here to change the layout rather quickly, or the different styles of the button. Lots of different things to choose from. So that's under Insert. That's Smart Art. You also have Shapes. So if you're trying to get a little graphics in there to make your data stand out or to highlight some specific information, it has arrows and things like that. You can point at certain things. You can colorize it differently. You can make Excel look really great if you wanted to spend the time on that, or if you had the need to do that. And then there's also, you can insert regular pictures from your computer. Typically throws it in somewhere on your screen, and you can make these bigger, smaller with the edges, and then click and drag on it with the left and move it around on the screen. And of course, this also has different styles that you can manipulate the photo in. I'll just put that small and drag and drop it over there. We also have clip art, and that's those little clip art things. Been around quite a while for Microsoft Office. Little photos, and if I want to throw in one of these, I can click on it, and it puts one of these in here. And you can delete it with the keyboard. You can right-click on it and say Cut Copy. So if I need multiple copies of something, I can copy a picture and paste it several times if I wanted to. Or if I needed multiple arrows in here, I can right-click and say Copy and paste. I need another one over here. I want to put this one this way. Remember the green dot from last time? You can grab that, turn it, point it to rotate your items. There's a lot you can do in Excel just besides just manipulating and data or lists and information of that nature. Now, if I'm done with the clip art, don't need it no more, I can click this little X in the corner to make it go away so I have more room on my screen. And if you're dealing with a very large spreadsheet, don't forget you have that zoom down here to zoom out or zoom in to deal with that in case you have a lot, to arrange things easier by zooming out or in. So take the time. Go through these menus. Try it. You can't hurt anything. Just, open up a blank document or a copy of a document you already have. Try out what all these things do on these tabs, these different tabs here. And remember, you can always hold your mouse on top of one of these buttons and it gives you some information about what it might do for you. Page layout for your margins, your sizes, inserting items, or your standard hold button just for changing your fonts, your font colors, and things of that nature. But don't forget, always save your documents at least once, especially when you're creating a new one. Hit that save button, or if you like keyboard shortcuts, Control S on the keyboard. Once again, that's Control S on the keyboard for saving. Or, of course, you can use the Office button in the corner. Click that, and you have Save, Open, New, also options for printing or emailing it, and so on from there. I think that's all we have for today. So thank you very much for joining us.